What's up, guys, and welcome to the weekly Q&A featuring new microphones.
Ooh.
Very fancy.
We each have one.
Yeah, so hopefully we sound good. Our first question comes from Troy Williams, who asks why the Sith are constantly ignoring the rule of two.
So in his question, he kind of expands on that, talking about how Dooku has Asajj while he's still an apprentice to Darth Sidious, and then in the Darth Plagueis book, they're breaking it left and right. I think it's probably because the Sith aren't really known for their rule following.
Yeah, I don't see them as being, like, sticklers for the rules.
Right. So I think that at least at Darth Bane's time, when he set everything up, like, that was revolutionary, because for the most part, Sith want to have power for themselves. For them to see the bigger picture was like a huge thing. So Darth Bane should be, I think, commended for that, and that he was like, we're not going to rule the galaxy in my lifetime. I'm going to set things up so that future generations can win. And I think as time went by, so like Darth Zana was very committed to that idea. Mm-hmm. It seems like Darth Cognus was very into that idea, but as time went on, the Darth Plagueis novel even kind of hints that Darth Tenebris, and he was like Venomous was Tenebris's apprentice, his secret apprentice. Sorry, almost got. So Darth Tenebris was Darth Plagueis' master. There's this whole tree that I'm trying to follow in my mind. Anyway, Tenebris was basically saying that he didn't care about the rule of two anymore, and that those days were gone because they were pretty close to ruling the galaxy. So yeah, that's what I think.
I just think they got greedy.
Yeah. They went back to their old nature.
Yeah. Jedi Bob wants to know why Han and Leia can survive without spacesuits inside the space slug.
This question, I think you're really asking kind of about scientific accuracy in Star Wars. And
which hasn't been known for
right.
Being a thing.
Star Wars has never been really science fiction, I would say. I would call it space fantasy more than anything. I mean, but to answer your question about the slug, I guess maybe there's atmosphere inside of space slugs, plus they were on an asteroid, and Star Wars Rebels kind of handled that the same way, where they were, in one mission, they were attacking an asteroid, and they were able to just like jump out of the ghost onto it. So I guess there's atmosphere on some of these asteroids, especially the big ones. But then in your question, you also reference like how at the end of Empire Strikes Back, you can see an entire galaxy out the window. And I think they just did that because it looks cool. Like, they're never ever going for just like scientific accuracy in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I've seen, I think, Pablo Hidalgo talk about how Star Wars originally, it was kind of modeled after these serials that were created back during World War II, back when we didn't know much about space at all. We had never been there. And so these old space fantasy series like Buck Rogers, they were like our best guess at what space could be. So I think Star Wars still does that, where they're like, I don't know, can you survive in space if you just have an oxygen mask on? Maybe. Like, sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, they have masks on, so we don't know how atmospheres work in the Star Wars galaxy, so maybe they just needed the masks and the rest of them were fine.
Right. I think that it was just, I guess there was enough pressure on that asteroid. And like, I don't know, we don't know about space either. Like,
yeah. I can just picture them coming out of the ship and then just floating away, and then the end credits. Is that
directed
a meme?
by Irvin Kershner?
Yeah, is that a meme?
Yeah.
Fred Campo asks our thoughts on Vader's meditation in the Darth Vader comics becoming increasingly dark.
I wanted to bring this up mostly because I thought that was a great catch and something I hadn't noticed. So the Darth Vader comics have been showing us Darth Vader meditating, and I'll throw up the images, but his first meditation, you see like these blue glowing butterflies, and as they continue on, those butterflies disappear. And I think that basically it's just showing that he is distancing himself further and further from the light side of the Force. Maybe those butterflies somehow represent Padme, and that's just him like forgetting her or something, although they kind of touched on that in the other Darth Vader series that took place after A New Hope. So I don't know. But I think that basically we're to see that he is getting further and further away from the light side and immersing himself further and further into the dark.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I imagined it. I like to think of it more as like his memories of Padme and how they're just slowly fading away. But it could also be that he has a big event coming up and he's got literally butterflies
Sure.
in his stomach.
He's like, oh gosh, like now I have to be second in command of this empire, and like Palpatine is right above me. Like that's a dangerous position to be in.
I would have butterflies.
That's a good point.
But then
maybe he's just settling into that role now.
Then his confidence grows and they go away.
There it is. That's canon.
Michael Sweat wants to know if the rebels still would have won the Battle of Endor even if Luke weren't there.
I thought that was a really interesting question.
Me too.
Because I think they probably would have. I can't think of anything that Luke did that really changed the tide of the battle. Yeah. And I almost think that maybe he thought that it was a one-way trip. Like he was going to go try to save his father and bring him back to the light side, and that might have been it. I know in Star Wars Legends there was this whole thing about how Palpatine was doing battle meditation, and once he died, like everything fell apart. They haven't brought that up in canon at all. It could still be true. So maybe once Palpatine died, things really fell apart. But I mean, the rebels were already inside the second Death Star at that point. Like, yeah. I feel like they were going to get the second Death Star no matter what.
I think they would have won the battle, but then we wouldn't have had any more Star Wars movies.
Yeah. And maybe the Empire wouldn't have retreated. Like, if Luke weren't there, I do think Palpatine would have escaped. I mean, Luke had enough time to drag his father to a shuttle and get off the Death Star, so...
Yeah, I always wondered what people think that are running amok in that scene. Like, is that guy dragging Vader? Like, that seems bold.
Yeah, I think they were just like, don't care. Like,
or they're like, whoa, that's what he looks like, gross.
Just like some old man, weird. Why were we so scared?
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, I think at that point, all of the Imperials were just like, every man for himself. But, yeah, I guess we both think that the Rebels probably still would have won, unless they come out and say something about that battle meditation stuff. It just hasn't been brought up since the canon reset.
Yeah. I mean, they threw everything they had at them, so... Solus Ignis asks how we would feel if Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc, knowing how we feel about Darth Maul's return.
Yeah, so he's about to make me look like a hypocrite. But because, like, I always talk about, like, I love Darth Maul's story stuff, but I feel like bringing him back set this precedent of anyone in Star Wars can survive. So, can Boba Fett survive? Like, if he came back, yeah, I'm all for it. And in fact, I do think he did survive because I guess I was young when that first happened and I was into the character. So it's just something that I'm used to. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, of course Boba Fett survived.
It's all like the really cool characters that have the ability to survive.
Yeah.
But also, we didn't actually see Boba Fett get cut in half or... chomped into pieces by the Sarlacc. He just fell down and didn't it burp?
Oh yeah, it totally ate him. Yeah. But you're right, he didn't get cut in half. Like, his survival is it's far more plausible, not just a little more plausible. He's wearing all that armor. Like, he can survive in there, I assume. He's got a jetpack he can fly back out, so... Yes.
He's got a grappling hook.
Yeah, there's so many tools he has that he can get out. So I do think that it's likely that he survived. I think the Aftermath trilogy hinted at it at the very least, although he seems to have abandoned his armor. So we don't know what's going on with Boba Fett. Or it's possible that somehow the Sarlacc digested him and threw his armor back up or something. But
so going back to the Aftermath book, what happens in that scene? For those of you who haven't read it.
Okay, so there's a guy, Cobb Vanth. He is like a sheriff on Tatooine, and he goes into a sandcrawler just to buy some stuff, and he finds a full set of Mandalorian armor that's been pocked with some sort of acid. And it's like, okay, clearly that's Boba Fett's armor. There's no... Or at least that's what I think Chuck was hinting at. They could always say, like, no, that was just some other Mandalorian's armor, but what is it doing there on Tatooine? Why is it pocked with acid?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, to answer your question, that Boba Fett can come back, and I'd be okay with it, and I totally admit that that's kind of hypocritical of me. That's it for patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon, where we left you a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. Just $1 a month will get you access to extra Star Wars Explained content, like audio commentaries for the films, and our so far exclusive podcast type thing, Between Two Suns. We've only done 2 episodes of that so far.
Yeah, it's been fun.
But all that stuff's in there, so check it out if you're interested.
On to YouTube questions, we've got Travis Letchford, who asks if Kalani the tactical droid will ever return.
Just to fill anyone in who hasn't seen Star Wars Rebels, or the Clone Wars. In the Clone Wars, there was this super tactical droid on Onderon, and then he wound up getting sent off to some other planet. And then in Star Wars Rebels, they stumble upon him, and he's trying to kind of keep the Clone Wars going, and then Ezra talks him out of it, basically. And so Kalani takes all of his battle droids, and they just kind of go off in the galaxy somewhere to chill. I don't know. They don't really say. So yeah, will he ever come back? I think so, because that feels like this little dangling thread somewhere. Also, Star Wars has really been talking about droids a lot. Like The Last Shot book, Most Wanted, both the Han books, strangely, dealt with droids, and there seems to be like all of these kind of droid rights talks. We have L3, also a Solo relation. I haven't thought about this before, but anything involving Solo, and there's like these droids that want freedom. But I feel like Kalani could play into that, especially if this turns into some sort of droid war where they need forces, and Kalani is like, maybe I can help.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So yeah, I think so.
Nelkir Son von Balgroof wants to know why Tarkin calls Vader the last remnant of his religion when he actually knew that the Emperor was also a Sith.
I can't recall if Tarkin knows that for sure. I feel like it was mentioned somewhere, but I honestly can't remember. If someone remembers, please put it in the comments. I felt like he at least thought that that was true, but didn't have it confirmed. Anyway, whether he knew or not, I think that he was referring to Vader as a fallen Jedi. The book Tarkin definitely hints that he knows who Vader really is, and he knows that he was once a Jedi Knight, so I think he's more referring to him being the last of anyone that was ever a Jedi.
Yeah.
And I guess he was just crossing his fingers that he didn't really sense Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that he wasn't on the Death Star, because that would be no good.
Yeah. Kylo Ren fan asks if Caleb Dume, aka Kanan Jarrus, will make a cameo in the new Clone Wars episodes.
It's possible, but I doubt it. I think that they're going to focus more on giving the Clone Wars a satisfying conclusion rather than they will try to connect it with Star Wars Rebels. I feel like they're 2 separate series. It would be neat if they somehow worked it in, but I'm just not expecting it.
These like connections questions, I always think about, well, maybe they'll mention them or they'll be in a hologram or something like that. But I don't think he would show up in the show in character, especially after, spoilers, his death.
Well, it's the Clone Wars. It takes place before all that.
I know, but like, we've all mourned his character's death. We don't want to see him again. I mean, some people might want to see him again on screen, but
maybe if there's a scene in the Jedi Temple, we'll see Caleb walk by with Depa or something. I think it would be cool. I think there's room for it. I'm just not expecting them to make it a priority.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a wardrobe change. So here's what happened. We had a question about, when are we going to see a Star Wars Resistance trailer? And then we had this whole joke where we made a fake trailer and made you think we were having some exclusive reveal on it. And
which was my idea.
Yeah, and it was really funny, but now you're never going to see it because the Resistance trailer came out and now we have to do another question.
You could still put it in.
Yeah, maybe I will. But we have to answer another question now.
Yeah.
We're going to keep it Resistance related because Michael Bounds on YouTube just said that he hopes that Phasma is treated with more respect in Star Wars Resistance than she was treated in episodes 7 and 8. And that's something I agree with, so I figured we would just talk about that for a while.
Yeah, we covered this a little bit in our chit-chat video about the Resistance trailer.
Which came out yesterday, which we filmed right before doing this because we're wearing the same clothes.
Yay.
But yeah, Phasma is a character that I have been disappointed with in the films, but outside of the films, I thought she was handled really well. I love her in her book. I loved her in her comic.
Mm-hmm.
She pops up in the Poe Dameron comic occasionally as well, and I thought that she was fine there. She doesn't do much. But I'm hoping that that trend continues, where outside of the films, yes, Phasma is treated with more respect. So that's my hope as well.
Yeah. I'm like on the fence about saying that I was disappointed with her in the movies because I guess I had higher expectations. I did think that there was a lot of cool moments with her, like when she gets hit and you can kind of see part of her face. I think that was really cool.
I agree.
But as far as Resistance goes, yeah, I think she may be kind of like the baddie character.
Yeah, the big bad. I mean, yeah, in The Last Jedi, I loved when she got hit in the face. But then when she was lying on the ground and everything was falling apart, I was like, get up, Phasma, do something cool. And then in the deleted scene, I thought that was actually pretty good, where she climbs up there with a bunch of stormtroopers and then winds up killing them all. Like, it brings back the stuff with Starkiller Base.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it kills me that we almost got that scene because that one did handle her well, I think. But yes, back to the show, I agree. I think that she will be kind of the big bad of the show. That she will be someone who is threatening to our main characters. We know that she can't die in the show, so hopefully she can actually do something cool.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see her training some of the stormtroopers. We know that she had a very rigorous training style, so might see that in the show.
That would be interesting, especially considering this is a kids show, to show the kids of the First Order as well.
Yeah, and maybe even like where they came from, how they got the kids.
Yeah.
So it could get dark. We don't know.
Maybe in later seasons. Maybe we'll have something where Kaz has to go undercover in the First Order, kind of like Ezra had to do in the Empire.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we'll see.
The short answer to your question is that, or your statement more than anything, is that yes, I agree. I hope she is treated better. And now back to the Q&A that we had filmed before.
Spyros Gudcanis asks if Obi-Wan could have beat Vader in their duel on the Death Star.
I don't think so. He did handle Darth Maul pretty well, but I mean, I don't think Darth Maul could have beaten Vader. I think that Obi-Wan did kind of stop fighting in the end. I think he could have fought longer, but he wanted to do something specific when he was giving himself up to the Force. He was becoming more powerful than he can possibly imagine, which I think now in the light of The Last Jedi, him kind of just peacefully putting his lightsaber up and letting go and letting Vader kill him, I think that was kind of an example that Luke eventually followed. But if he were to just keep on fighting as hard as he could, I still think Vader would have beat him.
Did Vader kill him? Or did he
It's hard to say.
I think he just became one with the Force because Vader goes to swing and then he just drops. Because doesn't he turn his lightsaber off as he drops?
His lightsaber does fall while he passes away or becomes one with the Force.
Yeah.
It's hard to say whether or not he became one with the Force because Vader hit him or if he became one with the Force as Vader was hitting him. Like, he could have just let go and disappeared.
Yeah, I can't remember, like, if his robes got singed or something like that. I don't
Doesn't
know.
look like it. It's like one of those things where I think it's kind of a production issue.
Yeah.
That when they filmed it, they had to shoot it this one way, and maybe if they were to redo it today, his robes would get cut in half, but they don't look like it in the movie itself.
Yeah.
So,
but I think you're right that, like, Obi-Wan surrendering, like helping get Luke where he needed to get, and then surrendering to his former Padawan, now turned Darth Vader. That kind of brought him full circle, and I guess that was just him surrendering himself up to the Force and disappearing. And it's one of my favorite scenes where Vader just goes over and starts
taps him,
taps his robes with his foot, and he's like,
"This is Ahsoka all over again."
Yeah, people get disappearing on me.
But what do you think? If Obi-Wan hadn't done that, if he were just fighting, do you think he could have beat Vader?
I'll say no, because I think Vader was at that time pretty mad.
I agree.
Just in general.
Yeah.
All his butterflies are gone.
No more butterflies. I'm done with butterflies. That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just leave it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel,
and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.
By the way, I just gotta show off my Porg shirt for those of you admiring.